My crush reject me 100 times, but when she find out my true identity she regret it immediately. Chapter 3. Anna's mansion on the dining. Mr. Smith stand up looking at his wife confused. Mrs. Smith turned to Brian and say, I'm sorry, I withdraw that money for something. That doesn't even concern me. Who have the mind to move my car from this house? Brian asked. What's going on here? Do I live in shadows? You withdraw such money without my concern, and on top of that one of you went on to use Brian car. I thought I made everybody understand not to touch things anyhow here, Mr. Smith says. Don't pretend to be good, you did this on purpose, Brian replied Mr. Smith. Brian, I'm sorry for withdraw that money without your concern and please forgive Chase, I didn't know he used the car. Mrs. Smith says calmly. I know you did this on purpose, why can't you leave this house? You have already teamed up with your husband and killed my mom, now you want to spend her wealth. Brian says. Mr. Smith shouted Brian's name and land him slap. Are you out of your mind? Your mother was sick before she died, Mr. Smith says angrily. Mrs. Smith held her husband not to slap Brian again. And turned to drag him upstairs. Wait, from today on, I will block all the family accounts, everyone is grown up, work for yourself. Brian says and walk away. Mr. Smith wanted to stop Brian, but his wife held his hand and shake her head no while Brian walking out. I told you we should have tell him the truth, this marriage was Anna's idea, I didn't want to do it, but she was concerned Brian's daily needs as a child will need a mother, but now he thinks I team up with you, Anna's best friend, to kill my own wife, Mr. Smith says to his wife. I'm Anna's best friend, I understand Brian, we got married the same day his mother passed away and I move in, so he has the right to think we killed Anna just to get married, Mrs. Smith says. The next day. In a restaurant, Brian is having lunch and Aline and her friends enter, and saw Brian sitting on the counter. Aline and her friends went to Brian's table and sit. Look who we have here, how are you intend to pay for your meal here, while you are broke like hell, Aline asked while her friends laugh at Brian. Brian smile and say, which of you here, parents or herself is wealth, you all are bunch of scraps. Aline laugh and say, yet we were able to humiliate you, and order you to do all such of embarrassing things. Aline start remembers Brian all the crazy and embarrassing things he has done just to be with her. I needed to get you to act like dog and please me, and that was easy. Aline says. One of the restaurant waiters arrive on Brian's table and hand him some files, and Brian thank him and walk away. Aline try to stop Brian by making fun of him, but Brian ignore her. Saturday afternoon in Anna's mansion, all the three maids are in the kitchen preparing meal and Mrs. Smith enter. Please, I want you all to be careful, especially you Aline, this is your first time meeting my elder son, one mistake he will fire you, so be careful, Mrs. Smith says, and Brian say from the doorstep, I didn't expect you to describe me as a monster to my own workers. Everyone in the kitchen turned towards the doorway. To be continue.